let's talk about the Democrats. The Democrats'
Sure.
hands are not clean on taking crypto money and on taking, tech billionaire cash as well. Look, the cash is there. They want in. Money infuses our politics. So I understand it. I don't think it's right. I understand why you try to play the game. You're never going to beat the game. But one of the things that's one of the things that's, I think, scaring the left or progressives really is a couple billionaires, founder of Expedia and the founder of LinkedIn, are asking a tit for tat. We'll give you millions of dollars, Kamala Harris campaign, but you have to get rid of Lina Khan. And I will mention that this week, huge news out of the Justice Department's case. I believe it, thanks to Lina Khan and the FTC against Google.
Yeah, I think that one is under Cantor, who's at the Justice Department, this specific case.
Thank you. And ruled that Google is a monopoly. It is a monopoly. And so the next step, obviously Google's going to appeal it, but the next step would be remedying it, which means that Alphabet, Google's parent company, might have to sell off parts, which is like, or be broken up, which is amazing. So this is the stuff that all, these tech companies and billionaires are scared about. But tell me about, whether your thoughts on Democrats and this same sort of dirty money that we're talking about.
Yeah, and to be clear, like the Democrats and Joe Biden putting Lina Khan at the FTC and putting Cantor, I believe it's at the Justice Department, so that, and some other key figures, so that they can move these antitrust investigations against the tech industry forward, have been really positive and probably some of the best, most consequential things that the Biden administration has done. And I think it doesn't receive the attention that it deserves because people are focused more on, certain other things that they've been doing, right?
Gary Gensler is a name I just learned because Donald Trump went in front of the Bitcoin conference or whatever and was like, we're going to,
people hate him. Yeah.
Fire Gary Gensler. You're like, poor Gary Gensler sounds like the most bureaucrat of the bureaucrats, but I guess he's looking into regulating crypto.
He's at the Securities and Exchange Commission, and so he's been doing a bit of that, and they certainly don't like him because they were trying to get crypto put under a different regulatory body that would have been much, would have given them much lighter regulation, right? Because it's easier for them to influence it than the Securities and Exchange Commission. But yeah, basically what we're seeing with the Democrats and the tech industry, as I said, the Democrats also have very deep and long-standing relationships to Silicon Valley and to these tech companies. Kamala Harris comes out of California. She was a politician there before she went federal, and she's used to going to tech companies and to tech billionaires and founders and what have you for money. We see behind her campaign right now, as you said, Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn, who's also on Microsoft's board, and Vinod Khosla, who are explicitly demanding that Lina Khan be removed in exchange for their millions of dollars in donations. We also see, of course, Melinda French Gates supporting the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris, Sheryl Sandberg, who was previously at Facebook, Reed Hastings, who was previously at Netflix. And of course, there are plenty of other people. I believe I read that Kamala Harris is poised to be in Silicon Valley this weekend for a fundraiser. And there's another one being planned by Google, OpenAI, and I think it was Amazon or Microsoft people in Washington, I think next week, but she won't be in attendance there. So, there's money flowing in. There are people in the tech industry who are very supportive of the Democratic Party, whether it's because, they believe more with kind of the social goals, maybe, that the Democratic Party stands for, as long as they don't tax them and regulate them too much, or are just more opposed to Donald Trump. But the types of things that they're demanding, they want to make sure that they're not going to be overly regulated. I think some of these people are probably a bit more comfortable with some degree of regulation. Sam Altman of OpenAI has previously said he is a Democrat. I don't know if that still is the case, because of course Elon Musk used to support the Democratic Party as well, and now very much doesn't. They want lower taxes. They want to make sure that they are not going to be overly regulated. They are really focused on getting rid of Lina Khan in particular, and not just the tech industry, but a lot of corporate America wants to get rid of her because of what she's been doing. And so I think that there is a concern there because Kamala Harris has not come out explicitly in support of Khan, and even her kind of spokespeople have just said that they're not looking at replacing Khan at the moment. And then the other big piece of this is who is on Kamala Harris's team. So
Right.
now that she has kind of taken over the apparatus of the campaign from Joe Biden, she has been pushing out some of his people and replacing them with people who she is choosing. And among those are two key executives from Uber, Tony West, who is her brother-in-law and who is Uber's chief legal officer, who is there now, who's obviously been helping Uber to fight this campaign to make sure that workers are not being recognized as employees and are being treated as contractors, and explicitly writing that into like the labor law in states around the country and around the world, really. And then, of course, David Plouffe or Plouffe, I don't know the pronunciation on his name, but he used to be part of the Obama campaign and the Obama administration as well. But he was chief of strategy or something like that at Uber for a long time. He was found to have illegally lobbied the Chicago mayor, Rahm Emanuel, to help with Uber there. He was known for really creating a relationship between the Obama administration and Uber. So Uber would get, would basically be able to like deliver programs, would be able to get good access to people in the administration, all that sort of stuff. And then
Yeah.
the other final piece of that is just in Europe, where he also used diplomatic relationships that he had built up from the Obama administration to make sure that when European countries were starting to move to regulate Uber, that diplomats working at the American embassy were going to their counterparts in these European Union countries and saying, don't regulate Uber. This is an American company. We don't want you to do this. So a lot of problems there.
I've been rolling my eyes. If you're listening as a podcast, this is a huge liability. Like your brother-in-law, head of Uber legal. Are you fucking kidding me? This
Yeah.
is bad news. This runs completely counter to a, pro-labor, pro-union, working class populism. And
And like while Plouffe or whatever has left
it's
Uber, but like Tony West is still at Uber, and he has just taken a break to serve on the Harris campaign, and then he will be going back to Uber afterward.
I mean, I guess that's good that there's a guarantee that he won't be in government, but still, it's like, and it reminds me of there is a revolving door, and it usually was, I think, from the Democrats to tech. It reminds me of Jay Carney, who was a former press secretary, who's now basically does PR for Amazon.
Yeah.
And just the worst guy. Like, again, he was the one sort of out in front when Amazon had during all their union drives, and which is ongoing, spreading all kinds of misinformation. I mean, real dipshit level stuff. And so, like, yeah, I mean, it's so funny because we talked about Tim Walz coming from Minnesota, all these incredible things that Minnesota was able to roll out. Some of them, have been implemented here in California. Others have not been implemented in California. But it was funny because, there's been framing around, hey, look, this is what happens when Democrats control legislatures, and the governor's office. It's like, not quite, because California has been controlled by Democrats for many, many, many years. And we're forgetting one piece of this: money. Democrats in this state are super corporate. They love money. They take money, all kinds, not just from the tech industry, also from the fossil fuel industry. Our legislature and our Democrats are far from clean when it comes to that. And it's like, if you want to look any further for why Democrats and having majorities are not where it's at, only look at this fucking state, man. It's super unequal. We have so much work to do. But again, if Minnesota were like the tech capital of the world, maybe shit would be very different. It's like, I'm jealous of, them not being as replete with some of these douchebags.
Yeah, and well, that's actually probably one of the problems with Waltz as well. Like, Waltz and Bashir were my two picks for VP, so I'm very happy to see him being one of the people who was chosen for that. And I think that he's a really good addition there, and probably is a sign of maybe some good things with the campaign. We'll have to see the policy positions that they roll out. But one of the issues with Waltz, even though he has passed a lot of progressive stuff in Minnesota, is he also made a deal with Uber and Lyft to make sure that they wouldn't pull out of the state, and basically implemented their model of labor and kind of legalized it there, right? And so, especially to see the Harris campaign pulling in these Uber executives, and then to see that Waltz doesn't have the greatest track record on that side of things, on the gig work side of things, that is a bit of a concern, even though for the most part things are good with him, right?
Yeah, I mean, but it is sort of the trial balloon is Uber and Lyft, and it has been the world over.
Yeah.
How governments deal with that, how cities deal with that. We're gonna go to Chicago soon, and I know that has been a massive fight, as you said, and Rahm Emanuel being lobbied by the head of Uber, and then I know a friend I'm staying with is just like, well, use Curb, which supports taxi drivers. Don't take Ubers, don't take Lyfts, take public transportation, do all this, and but it is a trial balloon, and we say that because it starts with transportation, it starts with undermining taxi drivers, but then it goes to literally everything.
Mhm.
It's fucking Airbnb and housing. I mean, and this I think is really interesting because, and you tell me what you think about it, but the way the Democrats soft pedal tech and allowing them to, allowing innovation to reign, whatever the hell that innovation means, leads precisely to the kinds of villains, these wealthy villains that we're seeing throw down with libertarian, crypto fascist, authoritarianism, because of course it does.
Mhm.
Because again, if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. But I'm curious as to your thoughts. Am I wrong, or because I do feel like we're at this crossroads when it comes to tech? It's like you can't go halfway on this. These have to be, in large part, we have to see them the way Bill McKibben says to look at the fossil fuel industry. You might have created in some ways good things, um, but you are not a good industry. You are not on the side of people.
Absolutely. And, I think that the Democrats have a lot to account for when it comes to dealing with this moment and what the tech industry has become, right? It was Bill Clinton that privatized the internet and that allowed this big explosion to happen. There were also some financial changes and things that he did as well to encourage the payment of executives through shares instead of through, income or whatever. That all
Right.
come out of his moment of other financial deregulations that were a big problem there. And then, of course, the Obama administration was very close with the tech industry. He helped to ensure that the space industry that the United States has became reliant more on private companies like SpaceX rather than NASA, and making sure that they were developing this private space industry. He put a lot of money into helping companies like Tesla, for example. He was very friendly with a lot of these tech executives. Did not move on trying to stop the growth of their power, because the United States, of course, benefited from the growth of these companies in creating jobs and creating wealth and having the share prices go up and all this kind of stuff, because all these companies are very overinflated in their market value. So they're great for investors. They're great for shareholders who
I
are
mean, that's
investing
the
in
thing
these
is like,
things.
it just reminds me of like the Truth Social bullshit where you're like, don't
Yeah.
we see that, like, yeah, Truth Social was terribly overvaluated and robbed a lot of people, but like a little bit aren't all of these companies Truth Socials?
To a certain degree, right? Like a lot of some of these companies do throw off a ton of money, right? Like the Googles, the real monopolists, like
Sure.
they control these markets. They make a crazy ton of money. Like even though Meta or Facebook, whatever you want to call it, is still spending crazy sums on the metaverse, it's still throwing off massive profits because it really controls the social network ecosystem, right?
Right.
And so the US government also benefited from the fact that these companies were not just American companies operating in the United States, but were going global and dominating these markets around the world and bringing those profits back to the United States, and having the share prices of these companies like explode. The United States, and under whether it was Obama, under Trump, under Biden, still go out there and make sure it's in free trade deals that the tech companies are protected from regulations and taxes and things like that that they do not want to be that they do not want to have to abide by in other countries around the world. And so
Yeah.
now when we look at this pushback against the tech industry, that we're seeing from the Democrats, it's good to see that, right? But it's so late that it becomes a lot harder to actually do anything meaningful to rein in the power of these billionaires and
Yes.
these massive companies.
And it's so slight.
Mhm.
And the fact that Lina Khan does it, like one of the, I mean, there's a number of folks who are doing stuff like this, but like she's not making a big deal about it. It's not like she's not declaring a class war, in the other
Yeah.
direction or whatnot. And they're still so upset at it. But it's just amazing because we are so behind. We need 10 Lena Khans. We need
Yeah.
so many lawyers. We need so many people to actually fight this. And by this, I don't mean, again, you're right to own a stupid looking fucking Cybertruck that you can't even move a couch with, you dumb fuck. But, the fact, like, that's fine. But it's everything else. It's the buying of our political system. It is having regulations skirting them and whatnot. It's buying our Supreme Court. I mean, it's funny that they haven't, as though we know, bought, their Supreme Court justices. And it's like, oh, because they've already been bought. They've already killed the Chevron doctrine. They're now, ostensibly ripping the power of regulation away from federal agencies, which is just a dream come true if you are in an industry like tech. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuation room. Do it.